Okay, Boker Tov. Moedim L'Simcha. Today's daf is daf Mem Aleph in Yevmot, as we learn for Shleimer for Yos Pasriel Ben Chaim Michal and Elazar Ben Reuma. We'll start from the two dots, about 8 lines from the bottom of Mem Amid Beis. Now, Mutter Adam and Mishnah had said a strange thing. You're allowed to marry, let's say, the Krova was called the sister of the Tzara of the Chalutza, the one you gave Chalitza to, but you can't marry the Tzara of the sister of your Chalutza. What's the svar for that? We'll see that in a few minutes. First thing more says, Amar of Tuvi Bar Kisna, Amar Shmuel, Habal Tzara's Chalutza. Here a very simple case. A man had two wives. Reuven had a wife, Leah, and Sarah, right? We always call it Sarah. He had two wives. Okay, he died with no children. And his brother Shimon gave Chalitza to Leah, right? Leah and Sarah, he gave a Chalitza to Leah. What is Sarah's status? She's the tzara of the chalutza, right? So she of course, she's free to marry. But if Shimon subsequently sleeps with her, what's the issur? If everybody agrees that if you give chalitza to a woman, right? Give chalitza to a woman, and then he decided to marry her, he can't marry her. It's issur lav. It's issur lav, not chorus, not chorus. But what about the tzara? So here he says, I'm Shmuel Habal Tzara's chalutza, Avlad Mamzer. If he lives now with Sarah, he didn't even give her chalitza yibmat. Vaz Mamzer. Why? What's the svara? Because she's the original Eishesach. The one who's a chalutza, Leah, got a chalitza. She only is in a surlav. The other one, in other words, Leah is not doing the lusha of the Gemara, lusha Rashi. Leah is not the shlucha of Sarah. She's just, there's two wives. You can give chalitza to either one or give yibam to either one, not more. And he gave chalitza to Leah. Fine. What's the status of Sarah? So you know what he says, a big chiddush from Tuvi Arkis. He says, you know what? Sarah is like Eishesach Shlav Malka Mitzvah, it's Shakaris. You didn't give her chalitza, you gave the other one chalitza. So now we don't hold this way. We hold that once you give one chalitza, they're all like chalitza, and it's an Israelav, it's not a Shakaris. Pardon?
No, automatic.
Yeah, automatic. It's like works for everybody. Like one is doing it for the other ones, right? But that's not his opinion. He says, Vlad Mamzer, my time would be Surah Kaima. She has the original Eishesach. There's no mitzvah now. She has a mitzvah of Eishesach, right? Is there a mitzvah? Even no. Is there chalitza? No. She stays with the Israelis. That's the tzara. Amar Rav Yosef. You see from our Mishnah too. Why? Because the Mishnah says Mutter Arba Krova Tzara's Chalutzas. The Mishnah says you're allowed to marry the sister of the tzara of your chalutza. If the tzara is like the chalutza, right? In the sense he gave chalitza to her, so it's like he gave chalitza to her, right? Achos chalitzaso is aser. Achos grushaso is aser min Torah, but achos chalitzaso is aser min Rabbanan. Gave chalitza to one. Chalitza is like a grusha, just like a chalutza can't marry a kohen. Why does it say that in the Torah? No, but the grusha can't marry a kohen. So chalitza is like a grusha too. So just like you can't marry achos grushaso, if you divorce your wife, you can't marry your sister while your wife is alive. So it's saying you can't marry achos chalutza. So he says, listen, man, how can you marry the krova how can you marry the sister of the tzara chalutza? Mishnah says you can. Why can you marry the sister? Because the tzara is not like she got chalutza. It's not like she got chalitza. Leah got chalitza. Sarah didn't get chalitza. So you can marry her sister. You can't marry a chos chalutzaso, but this is not chalutza if you're saying that. So he says the proof to what I'm saying is that what? That Sarah is not like she got chalitza. Leah got chalitza. Sarah didn't get chalitza. Okay, and therefore, if the Yavam subsequently slept with her, say Shachlav Makom Mitzvah, Vlad is a mamzer. So you see the Mishnah too, because they say you're allowed to marry the sister or the relative of the tsar of the chalutza. Why? Because the tsar is not like she got chalitza, so she's not like a chos chalutza. So if you say like I say that the tzara was not part of it, she's excluded. She's not like she got chalitza. Leah got chalitza. Sarah didn't get it. That's right. You marry her sister because she's the sister, not a chos chalutza. Everybody agrees that a chos chalutza is aser, right? At least Rabbanan. But so why are you allowed to marry her sister in this case? Why are you allowed to marry the Mishnah says you're allowed to marry the sister of the tsar of the chalutza? Why? Because the tsar is not like a chalutza. If the tsar would be like the chalutza, if when you give chalitza to Leah, it's like you also gave chalitza to Sarah, then you wouldn't be allowed to marry Sarah's sister because she would also be considered a chos chalutzaso. But since we say you're allowed to marry the sister of Sarah. That shows you that Sarah is not considered a chalutza. If Sarah is also like a chalutza, when you give chalitza to Leah, you gave it to her co-wife also, Dami, amai mutter, why are you allowed to mutter? So that's the case. Maybe this is a kasha Rabbi Yochanan who said back before on Daf Yud, once there's a bunch of brothers and there's a bunch of wives. And once, let's say, one brother, Shimon, gave chalitza to one sister, then if any of the brothers, including Shimon, marries any of the sisters, including the chalitza, it's only an Isser Lav, it's not an Isser Kares. So it's a kasha l'chora on Rabbi Yochanan, because here you see apparently that since you can marry the sister of the tzara of the one who got chalitza, shows you that the tzara is not as if she got chalitza. What kind of kasha is that? What do you bring the kasha anyway? Everybody agrees a chos grusha is daraisa. A chos chutz is only drabanan. Bamish lakish, we're going to have it in a few minutes. Kanshan and Rebbe, a chos grusha midivrei Torah, chos chutz is only midivrei sofrim. So it's only drabanan anyway. It's not like a chos chutz is a daraisa that you can prove from there, since you can marry the sister of if a chos chalutza would be daraisa. So then you could be me a kasha. Okay. If the tzara is as if she got chalitza, how can you marry her sister? And we said you could. That's only drabanan anyway. Achos chutz is only drabanan, so the rabbanan only made it isser. Even if you say that Leah, that tzara, as if she got chalitza, which is what Yochanan says. When you give chalitza to one wife, it's like you gave chalitza to all of them. And therefore, if you subsequently you or one of the other brothers married her, or married any one of them, it's only an isser lav. It's also it's lo yivna, but it's not kares. Right? Why? Because it's only a drabanan. The whole issur, even if you say that you can marry her sister in that case, because it's like you gave them all. So it's only because that's only, the issur of achos chalutza is only drabanan. So the rabbis only said achos chalutza only on the one you actually gave chalitza to, but not on the other sis, not on the other co-wives. So
the prohibition is to marry the sister of the chalutza. Is that what you're saying?
Right. But the rabbi said you can't marry the sister of the chalutza. You can't marry the sister of the chalutza. It's like in Esachos, you shouldn't marry her. It's an Isser Drabanan. To me, you're not going to get cars for that. You're going to get even a lav. It's only Isser Drabanan. So you could say, so Rabbi Yochanan says, okay, truth is that if you gave chalitza to Leah, the main co-wife, let's call her, the other co-wife, Sarah, it's like she got chalitza too. So how could you marry her sister? Well, it's only the Isser of Achos Chutz is only drabanan. The Rabbanan only said it on the one you actually gave chalitza to, not the other co-wives. Even though the other co-wives would only be an Isser of lav according to Rabbi Yochanan, not according to Rav Tubi Bar Kisna. But now at the end of the Daf, the Gemara says, okay, the Mishnah said the last two lines of the Mishnah yesterday was you're allowed to marry the sister of the tzara of your chalutza, Sarah's sister, right? But you can't marry the tzara of the chalutza's sister, the chalutza's real sister, the chalutza's sister, not the chalutza's co-wife's sister. The tzara of the sister of the chalutza, you can't marry her. Why? Maishna, what's the difference? Maishna hai, says Gemara at the top of my mouth. Hafta az lebadol lebeidina goes rabbanan. Very simple. When a woman goes to court, let's say, to get the chalitza, like when she's going to court, who's she taking along with her? Is she taking along her co-wife, or is she taking along her sister? She's going to go with her sister for moral support. So when she and her sister go to the court to get chalitza, people don't know which one got chalitza. So we say, you know what? We say what the co-wife of either one of them, the tzara of the sister, Leah, has to go get chalitza. She takes Rachel, her sister, along to court. So you say, you know what? You can't marry the tzara of Rachel either. Why? Why? Because then people will think that she's really the one who got chalitza, and people think you're allowed to marry a chas chulutzasa, which is an eskrabanan. But you don't take your co-wife with you, so therefore the krova of the tzara of the chalutza, that's okay, because people aren't going to mix that up. That's the difference. Haftas l'badei dina goes rabbanan. The automatic zayrid. It's only rabbanan anyway. Even a chos chalutza is only rabbanan. Certainly the sister would be. Certainly, right, her sister. Her tzara would be. So over here, you didn't take the tzara with you to court. So therefore, when Leah went to court to get the chalitza, right, and she has a co-wife, Sarah, right? She has a co-wife, Sarah. So that co-wife's sister is okay, because she's not going to go with her to the co-wife's not going to come to the court, and nobody will think that a chos chulutza is mutter. Says the Mishnah, very simple here. Reuven died. The same case, we'll say Reuven died. He was married to Leah, no children. Shimon came along, and gave her chalitza, gave Leah chalitza. Okay, now what happened was, Levi married Rachel. Levi, another brother, married Rachel. Okay, everything okay so far? Yeah. Shimon gave chalitza to Leah, right? And now, Rachel married Levi. Umeis and Levi died. Who's alive? Shimon, right? Shimon first did chalitza for Leah, for his brother Reuven. And then Levi, his other brother, married Rachel. And now he died. So Shimon is left with whom? Rachel. But he already gave chalitza to Leah, right? So chaletz long as Midaraisa he could, right? Midaraisa he could, because it's a chos chalutzaso, right? She's a chos chalutzaso. But you're not supposed to marry a chos chalutzaso, midarabanan. So again, chalitza, give her chalitza. So he gives chalitza to Rachel. The chen hamagarish is ishto. Now, the Mishnah is chen garish ishto, but megarish is different. Because if you divorce, let's say Reuven divorced his wife Leah. Reuven divorced his wife Leah. And Levi married now who? Rachel. Umeis and Levi died. Hareza Ptura. She's putter entirely. Why? What does that mean? Levi died. It's a chos kushaso. Reuven divorced Leah. His brother Levi married Rachel, and he died. So what's Reuven supposed to do? Yibmor chalitza on Rachel. But he was married to her sister. So that's like a chos ishto. A chos kushas is like a chos ishto if she's still alive. So Reza Ptura, there's no chalitza or yibum. It's potter. That's it. So the Gemara is going to say, why did it say b'chein? We'll see that. Now, here's the complicated case. Here's another case. Again, Reuven died. And so Leah is a Shemeres Yavam, right? She's the Yavama. So Kiddush Achav Zachosa, here also, Levi gave Kedushin to Rachel. So what do you do in this case right now? Right? Shemeres Yavam, Shimon's there. Shimon hasn't done anything yet, right? Reuven died. Shimon is about to form Yibmor Chalitza. Meanwhile, Levi married her sister, married Rachel. So Mishum Rabbi Yudam say, we tell Levi, wait. Wait till Shimon does something. If Shimon does Chalitza or Yibam on Leah, fine, no problem. You can go ahead with your marriage to Rachel, right? So once Shimon gave Leah chalitza, Okansa or married her, so then Levi can go ahead and consummate his marriage. Mesa hayavama, let's say Leah died, so also Yichnas Zishtos, no problem, right? Because what's the problem over here? Reuven died and left two brothers, Shimon and Levi. So there's a zika to both, right? But Levi went and got engaged to Rachel. So we tell him, listen, don't get married yet. Why? Because you're marrying Achot Zukukato. Wait till Shimon does something. Let Shimon take care of it first. If Shimon does Yibmor Chalitza, then it's okay, right? Shimon does Yibmor Chalitza, then it's okay. Otherwise, not. Otherwise, you got a problem, right? If he does Yibmor Chalitza, so then you can go ahead and consummate the marriage to Rachel. Is this so? Meis Yavam, so Meis Yavam, or if Leah died. If Leah died also, he can get married to Rachel, right? Because you're married to Rachel's sister. Meis Yavam, what happens though if Shimon dies? Listen to the case again. Reuben's married to Leah, Reuben dies. There's two brothers, Shimon and Levi. Levi goes and gets engaged to Rachel. So we tell Levi, wait a while. Let Shimon do Yibam or Chalitza, right? Or if Leah dies, even better, no problem. What happens though if Shimon dies now? There's nobody left. Who's left? Shimon. Just like Levi, right? If Shimon dies, right? Good, you're with me, right? But Reuben died originally. Now Shimon died. Who's left? Levi. Now he's got Rachel, who he's engaged to, and he's got the Yavama, Leah. He's stuck. So what has he got to do? Yotzi is Ishta beget. He's got to give his wife a get because he can't marry her because it's Achot Skukakso, which is least an Isra Drabanan, and the Eish Achav B'Chalitza. Now, once he gave her a get, he can't marry Rachel. It's Achot Grushaso. It's like he was married to her, so he has to give her. So what does that mean? He has to give his wife a get because he can't marry her. But what about Leah? Leah has to give Chalitza to, because Leah's still stuck. Her husband had died, Shimon had died, and she needs Chalitza. He has to give her Chalitza. So he has to give her Chalitza, and he has to give his wife, his Kedushin wife, his Erison a get. So the Gemara now first says, my bechein. In the first part of the Mishnah, we said if you give chalitza to you give chalitza, and his brother married her sister, right? And then he died. So what can you do? You give a chalitza because you can't marry a chalitza. That's a chalitza, and it's rabbanan. So you give her chalitza. But what about gerushaso? If Reuven divorced his wife, and then what? And then her sister fell yibum to him. Shimon died and left her sister to him. That's a chos gerushaso. That's like a chos ishto. You don't even need chalitza. Why do you say bechein? The first case you need chalitza. The second one you don't need chalitza. It's patura. The aim is change it to aval megarish. It's not really bechein. Because in the first case, you give her chalitza because it's only a chos chalitza, which is an isra. A chos grushasu is an isra deraisa, so there's even more chalitza of megarish of aval hamegarish. Amr shlokish kanchan Rebbe. Here, Rebbe learned a chos grushasu divrei Torah, a chos chalitza divrei Yisrael. We see it's from the Mishnah. Because when is the case? When do you always give chalitza instead of yibum? When it's either a suffix, if you need chalitza, if you need yibum and you're not sure, so you give chalitza because you give, or it's a drabanan. The rabbanan said don't do it like in the case of a kohen. If a Kohen who has Yavama falls to him, he can't marry can't marry a Kohen Gadol marrying an Almana, or a Kohen if she's already a Grusha, he can't marry her. So you give her chalitza, even though Midaraisa, you could perform Yibam at least once, but it goes her be a Rishon out to be a Shnia. So that's what we had before back in Chafalov. But here you see from Rebbe says, you see from the Mishnah, Choletz is from the first case. Why? Because a Chos Chulutza is only Drabanan. But a chos gerusha is the divrei Torah. It's like a chos ishto. Therefore, it puts it from yibum and chalitz in general. Shamas yom shekir says the Mishnah. This is the case that we're dealing with now. Where again, let's review the case. Reuven died, and he left two brothers, Shimon and Levi. Levi went and got engaged to Rachel. Okay, so we tell Levi, wait, let Shimon do something. Let her do yibum or chalitza, or maybe Leah will die. Wait till he gets away. But what happens if Shimon dies? Then Levi's stuck. Amr Shmuel, halach Rav Yehuda say we love possibly say that we tell them wait, don't get engaged. Why? Because Rashi points over here. Rashi says Rav Yehuda the yesh zika. We had a machlokes before if yesh zika or not. Is zika considered like a partial marriage? Alim al mesrulav, and we paskin that way yesh zika. Yesh zika, at least it's rabbanan. You can't marry her because it's a chos kukoso. So again, Levi got engaged to Rachel, even though Leah was his yavama. And okay, we tell him let Shimon do something, but meanwhile, she's obligated, she's bonded to both Shimon and Levi until something is done. Iboilu, Mesa Ishto Mao. Here's a complicated. What happens if his own wife dies? What happened over here? First, Reuven died, right? Then Levi went and got engaged to Rachel. Okay, so we said, wait, let Shimon do something, right? If Shimon does Yibum or Chalitza, that's great. You can go and consummate your marriage. Or if Leah dies, that's also good. After the wait a few days, wait till the shiva is over, and you can consummate the marriage to Rachel. No problem. What happens if Rachel dies? Now who's left now? Levi and Leah. So can he marry Leah? Well, that's a question over here. Mao be vimto. Machlokes. Rav Chanina Damatabayo Mesa Ishtam Mutamavel. You can marry Yavama, right? If she's available, why not? Okay. Shmuel Ravasi Damatabayo Mesa Ishtam also be vimto. Can't. We'll see why. Rav, my time at Rav, what's Rav's reasoning? Yavama, very simple. Yavama Shahutra. Originally, she was mutter to him. When Reuven died. Then Benesra. Then she became mutter to him. Why? Because he got engaged to her sister. When she became his sister, he couldn't marry. It's right. It's a chos ishto. It is why kedushin is like ishto, right? So chos ishto. V'chazer v'hutra. Now that his wife died, he's mutter to marry her again. Tachsel heter rishona. That's Rav's reasoning. Rav says mutter b'yavimto. That's the psak. Okay. Maser Rav Amnuna, we'll see Shmuel in a minute. Maser Rav Amnuna, what do you mean? Another case we had before. Reuven and Shimon are married to Leah and Rachel, two sisters. There's a third brother, Levi, who's not married at all. Reuven died as usual. Reuven died with no children. Levi did Maimer, Kedushin Drabanan on Leah. Kedushin Drabanan on Leah. Then afterwards, Shimon died. Now, what's the status? Okay, Shimon died, which means that Rachel is also available to him now. Not available, she's Yevamah. He's got two Yevamas now. He's got Leah, who he did Maimer to, and he's got Rachel, who also just fell to him. Okay, so at that point, when she fell to him, he can't marry either one, because each one is a chotz kukaso. And then his wife died. Then afterwards, who died? Shimon's wife, Rachel, died afterwards. Osi Yavama, what about Leah? You see, if she gets chalitza, why can't he marry her again? Why don't you say originally? Originally it was mutter, became usher to him when he got engaged, when Shimon got engaged to, or when the Mufna Levi got engaged to Leah, so then he couldn't marry Rachel. And now that Rachel died, Shimon died, and Rachel died, Leah should be mutter to him again. If you say that once she becomes available again, it's mutter, why don't you say the same case over here? There you say in that case of the where again when Levi did Maimer on Leah, and then which made him forbidden to Rachel, and then his brother died, Shimon died, which means that Rachel also fell to him at that point. And she would, Rachel would have been usher to him because he did Maimer on Leah, and now she's usher to him even more because Shimon died. So what do you say? The Yavama Choletz Vami Sebemis. You don't say that Leah can now marry Levi. You don't say that. Why not? Ishtik. So he didn't have an answer to that. When Rav Meir asked that kasha to Rava, he didn't have an answer. The boss Nufik after he went on said, Omar, oh, am I lower? Like, why don't I tell him I have a reason why? That shita goes like Rabbi Lezer. The Amar Rabbi Lezer holds the famous shita. Kivin Sham De'Av Shas Achas Be'Isser Neselav Olamas. Rabbi Lezer held that once she's usher to you at all, that never becomes. Once the Yavama is usher to you at all. Remember, there's basically Yavama is an Isser of Eishasach. You can't marry your brother's wife. That Isser is period. The Torah says even after your brother dies, you can't marry him. There's a special heter. If he dies with no children, then there's a special mitzvah. But once there's an Isser, once you go to an Isser, it's always also forever. So maybe he says, I'll tell you that Brisa who says Choletz themselves goes like Rabbi Lezer. How do I know? Then he says, no, that doesn't make sense. Where she was also as soon as she fell to Yibam. In other words, as soon as Reuven died, the first one died, and there was the first Yibam there, it was also at that point. Once it's also there, we don't care what happens afterwards. That's his shita. That's what Rabbi Lezer says. Meaning, Rabbi Lezer says simply there's two wives. Rabbi Lezer says a case like this where a man divorced his wife. Reuben divorced his wife, and then he remarried her, right? And he took her back. He wasn't a Kohen. He married her again, and then he dies. Can she marry Shimon? So the Tanakh says, yeah. When she died, married Shimon. Reb Lezer says no. Oser, hold on. Since she was Oser, she was Grushas Achiva at a certain point in time. There's no Hetzer of Yibam. Even though he died with no children subsequently, but once it's Grusha Sachav, you can never marry. That's Rabbi Lezer Shita, Rabbi Lezer. So he says, at the time that Reuven died, she wasn't Roy for him then. But if she was Roy, if she could have performed Yibur Chalitza originally, when Reuven died, she could have formed Yom, maybe he doesn't say that, Hadar no. And he says that even in that case. But Tanya, we see Rabbi Lezer says, Mesi Yavimto, Mutter Be'ishto. Okay, very simple. Two men are married to two sisters. Reuben Shimon married to Leah and Rachel, and his wife died. Mesa Ishto, right? Mesa Yavimto, Mutter Beishto. If the Yavama dies, he can marry his wife. Mesa Ishto, Osi Yavama Choletz V'Lo Misebemes. So you see, once even if his wife dies subsequently, since she was also to him at the beginning, she was Achos Ishto. It's also forever. You understand? If his brother dies, Mutter Beishto, Mesa Ishto, Osi Yavama Choletz V'Lo. In other words, Rabbi Lezer says beferish even in our case, where the Yavama died, Mutter Beishto, Mesa Ishto, Osi Yavama Choletz V'Lo. So you see that in all cases, Mesa Yivimto, Amakadosh Achos Yivimto Koi. When he married this a case in our Mishnah, he got engaged to the sister of the Yavama, right? We say over there that Mesa Ishto, Osi Yavama Choletz V'Lo, that even if his wife dies, he can't marry Leah again, even though. And if Shimon dies, he's allowed to marry. Once the Yavama dies, let's say Leah dies, like in our Mishnah. If either Shimon consummates the marriage to Leah or Leah dies, Mesi Bimto, he can marry his wife because there's nobody left there, just him and his wife. Mesi Isha, but if his wife dies, like we said, like Shmuel Shita, that if his Mesa Ishto is Choletz of Lovas Yabemis. So you see over here, so you say that bright Mishnah will go like Rabbi Lezer. The lame Shmuel Rabasi Damak Lezer. Shmuel Rabasi, we said this before, again, where his wife dies. What's the case? Again, don't get confused. Reuben dies. He left two brothers, Shimon and Levi, right? Shimon's supposed to marry Leah, or meanwhile, or either give Yibur Chalitza. Meanwhile, Levi got engaged to Rachel. So what do we say over here? We tell him to wait to see what happens. But what happens if Rachel dies now? Can Levi now marry? And Shimon died and Rachel died. Can Leah get married to Levi? Can Levi marry Rachel now? So we had a machlokas. Rav says, yeah, now she's mutter again. And we said Shmuel and Ravasi said no. So maybe Shmuel and Ravasi also hold like Rabbi Lazar, that once it's usher, you can't marry at all. So no, I feel Rabbanan. They could say, I don't have to like Rabbi Lazar. I can even like the Rabbanan who say over there that in the case of Grushas Achiv, if Grushas Achiv, meaning Reuven divorced his wife, took her back, and then he died with no children, the Rabbanan say, you could perform, Shimon could perform Yibam over there. Can I like the Rabbanan? I can like the Rabbanan like Rabbi Lazar, Elam Shimon Afila Ve'echlo Mitzvah. It was never usher from the time that from the field after it was no mitzvah. At the time in the field it wasn't usher. Maybe the Rabbanan also she became usher in between. In other words, where do the Rabbanan disagree with Rabbi Lazar? In the case where, again, what happened? Reuven and Shimon were married to two sisters. Reuven divorced his wife and took her back, and now he died. So even if, let's say, Shimon's not married to her sister, Shimon, there's only Reuven and Leah and Shimon. Reuven divorced his wife, took her back, and now he died. Okay, he died now with no children, so Shimon can perform. Rabbi Lazar says no, because she was ushered to him once as Grushas Achiv. So there, the Rabbanan disagree. But if there was ever a time when she became usher, like in this case, where did she become usher? She became usher. When did Leah become usher to him? Because he married Rachel. He got engaged to Rachel. Once he became engaged to Rachel, so then Leah is a chos ishto. So for that time that she was usher, okay, his wife subsequently died. Rachel died. So Rachel died, and he should be mutter Leah. No, but once he's usher for a period of time, maybe even Rabbanan over there who disagrees with Rabbi Lazar in Rabbi Lazar's case would agree that you can't. There's no Yibam anymore. In other words, everybody agrees that if at the time of Yibam, at the time that Leah died, Levi couldn't marry Leah for some reason, a chos ishto, whatever the thing was, then it's also forever. It's also for it's Eishav Shalom Mark Mitzvah, even if, let's say, his wife died. That was the case we had before. Take a simple case. Reuven and Shimon are married to Leah and Rachel, right? Reuven dies, no children. What's the story? Shimon can't perform Yibam on Leah because he's married to her sister. Okay, now her sister dies. Rachel dies. What do you say now? Now they're together. No, once it's also, once it's Kol Yavam Shein and Nikara B'Shas Yavam at the time, B'Shas Nefila, when Reuven died, it's not viable. It's also forever. There, everybody agrees with that. But over here, everybody agrees with that. But over here, what happened? Originally, Levi could have performed Yibam on Leah. Then he didn't, because then he couldn't afterwards because he got engaged to Rachel. And then Rachel died, so he became available again. There we come into this machlokus between Rav on the one who says, yes, she is available again, and Shmuel and Ravasi, who will say, like Rav Lazar in this case, that no, it's not mutter again. Here we come to an easier Mishnah. We know you're always supposed to wait for 3 months. Any woman who gets remarried was married for whatever reason, her husband died, divorced, whatever it was, has to wait 3 months for Avchana Zera to make sure you know whose kid it was. Because if she gets married right away and then has a baby 7 months later, because a 7-month baby is even born after 6 months. In general, 9 months babies are usually full term, whereas 7-month babies are born anytime after 6 months. 6 months and a day is a 7th-month baby. So if the baby's born, if she didn't wait 90 days after her husband and her separated, you're worried that maybe what happened, and the baby is born 7 months later or 6 months and 2 days later. You're not sure, is it a 7-month baby from the second husband or from the first husband? So in the case of the Yavama also, it's also Leah's, Shimon is now marrying Leah, and it's a new marriage for both of them. It's a new marriage. So she shouldn't get chalitza or even. Now we'll discuss why not chalitza. Can't give chalitza right away. All women who are getting remarried, they shouldn't even get engaged. Make Xera. Getting engaged, what's the problem? She's not having a baby. Sometimes they have, they get together during the Erison also. So, whether they're virgins or not, whether they're divorced, widowed, whether they are married or arusas. The Gemara is going to say, what do you have to say, psula and arusas? It's usually the same. The Gemara will get there. But nobody, when they get remarried, she get married within 3 months. If they were married already, and now, but they can get engaged, because engaged, they're not going to have a baby yet, right? So they can have Erison. because in those days they did Erusin separately from the Nesuim. So they can get engaged, just can't consummate the marriage. That's Rabbi's opinion. We don't like Rabbi. The Arusas, and if they were only engaged, if the first marriage was only engagement, so she's not going to be pregnant from that, presumably, so she can get married. Chutzman Rus Shapiro, except Rus and Yehuda, they Shalibo Gospel, because they used to go on dates there. They used to go on dates. In other words, it wasn't just Shidduchim and Yehuda. They used to tell the Chassan and Kala, why don't you meet one another so you won't be so shy at the wedding night. That's what they used to do. They used to be so you should feel comfortable with her. So if you became comfortable with her, he might have gotten too comfortable with her. So we were more careful. So he says, Rabbi says, married women who were originally married, they can get engaged. If they were engaged, they can get married now because there's no chance of having a baby, except in Yehuda. Everybody can get engaged. Why not? Engaged isn't a problem. Whether they're married or engaged, get engaged. They're not going to have a baby yet. Chutzman, except for an almana, shouldn't even engage, be able. Because if she was an almana, she is, wait 30 days for the avails to be over. If she's an almana, she's wait at least 30 days for that. Forget it, right? Everybody else saying get married right away. You can get married the next day. Except for almana because of avails. But the halacha is not like either one, even like Rabbi Yossi or like Rabbi Yehuda. If she gets engaged, so the avails is over. So Bishlam to say, I understand why she shouldn't get engaged. She shouldn't get married within 3 months. Shemi Vlad Ben Kayama, because maybe there's going to be a baby, and you're not going to know whose baby it is. But worse than that, a Yavama, a regular person, you're not going to know whose baby it is. But Yavama, it's worse. If Reuven dies with no children, and Leah gets engaged, gets married the next day to Shimon, right? And it turns out that Leah was pregnant. It's Eishazach Shlod Makam Mitzvah. It's Eishazach the Raisa, Chorus, and a Mamzer. Ella lo tachlit samai. Why shouldn't she have chalitza? I'll tell you why. You know why? Because chalitza, in case she's pregnant, chalitza of a pregnant, we had that machlokes before. Rabbi Yochanan Mishlokesh is if you give chalitza to a pregnant lady and then she loses the baby, is it good chalitza or not? Over here you say you shouldn't. So that's a right that chalitza wouldn't be good on a pregnant. Elo tachlit samai. It's a kashan Rabbi Yochanan. Damar chalitza muber shma chalitza. He says you can give chalitza to muberes. That's a good chalitza. If afterwards she loses the baby or whatever, you don't need another chalitza. Rish Lakish says you do need another chalitza. Rabbi Yochanan says you don't. It's a kasha here Rabbi Yochanan because here apparently you see a chalitza is no good. So it's more of a labim yismin of Rabbi Yochanan. We already refuted Rabbi Yochanan back before in Daf Lamed Hey. And we already refuted him. So what's the so they're going so maybe we already refuted him. So what's the big deal that it's a kash him? Maybe it's a kash from here too. In case you get rid of the first refutation, right? In case you knock off the first one, you slug that one up, so you have another refutation. It's low. It's not a kash from Rabbi Yochanan. The reason over here is not because chalitza of a muber is not a chalitza. The reason is because maybe she'll really have a baby. Let's say you have a baby. Everybody agrees if she has a baby. He gave a chalitza to Leah. Shimon gave chalitza to Leah right away. He didn't wait. Turned out she was pregnant. She had a baby. Is the chalitza do anything? No, the chalitza is meaningless, right? She can marry a Kohen now, right? You can marry her. You can marry her sisters because the chalitza it's not a chos chalutza. So here's the problem because maybe there'll be a baby. So what's the problem? And you have to call out that she's mutter to marry a Kohen. She's mutter to marry a Kohen, meaning because originally thought she got chalitza, she can't marry a Kohen. Now it turns out the chalitza is not a good chalitza because she had a baby, so she didn't need chalitza. You have to say no, she's allowed to. So what? So make an announcement that she can marry a Kohen. What's the big deal? Here's what the Gemara says: people heard the first email, not the second one. That's the problem with always the updates. People heard the first one, but people heard, oh, she's a chalitza. Did you hear? Leah got chalitza. Make sure no Kohen marries her. Be sure about that. Okay, there's a second announcement. The next day they sent a little message at the bottom, another email. Forget that chalitza, it didn't count. They didn't see the second one. That's the problem. And people think that she can't marry a Kohen. And people will think when they see that she does marry a Kohen, that a chalutza can marry a Kohen. That's what people will think. So that's what you're always worried about. People say she can't marry a Kohen. And they'll say they didn't hear the second one and they won't allow her to marry a Kohen. Or if she does marry a Kohen, they'll think that a chalutza can marry a Kohen. So tenach almana, fine. I understand that by an almana, we have that problem. Meaning, what does that mean? If this lady was only an almana, meaning Reuven died, and Leah was going to marry Shimon, right? And he gave her chalitza, so you shouldn't give her chalitza. But let's say before she was married to Reuven, she had been married prior, and she was divorced. She was divorced. She can't marry Cohen anyway. If a lady who's divorced, she can't marry Cohen, even if she was subsequently married and widowed. She can't marry Cohen. I'll tell you why. Because you're going to take away her mazonos. If you're a chalitza, once she gets chalitza, she doesn't get mazonos anymore. She doesn't get sustenance anymore from the estate. He doesn't have to give her a sustenance anymore. Nafla mazonos. So tenech masua. That's if she was married fully, then she gets mazonos. Arusa grusha ma'ikomer. What are you going to say if she was only engaged now till Ruvain, so she doesn't get mazonos from him anyway? She doesn't give one, and she was a grusha originally. So why don't you give her chalitza? What's the problem? You're not going to ruin to a coin, and she's already ruined to a coin. What can be the problem? What could be the problem? You're worried about that? Elam mishum Rabbi Yossi. This is all a kasha, like you so to speak, on Rabbi Yochanan. Maybe the reason is because we pass like Rishlakish that chalitza muberes is not a good chalitza, and that's why you don't do it. But Rabbi Yochanan is trying to defend himself. Even chalitza muberes is a chalitza. There's other reasons why. Elam shum Rabbi Yossi. The tiny ma'aser b'adam echad l'soish b'al Rabbi Yossi. Amalei ma'alichas b'tzad. Can I give chalitza to her? Amalei lo tachlis tachlis. He says, I don't give her chalitza. But tachlis ma'abakach. Why not? It's in 3 months. What do you have to lose? I'm giving her chalitza. I'm not marrying her. Give her chalitza. Ma'abakach. What's the harm going to be done? He says, Pasuk says, if he doesn't want to marry her, he should give her chalitza. Harm chafetz if he wants to. Yavam. In other words, the reason why you don't give chalitza, Rabbi Yochanan will say, Rish Lakish will say you don't give her chalitza because maybe she's pregnant and a chalitza muberes is not a good chalitza. You might make a mistake. Rabbi Yochanan will say, no, it's very simple because you can't do yibam over here. Why? Because maybe she's pregnant and and it's Eishes Achshel of Malka Mitzvah. But I'll tell you why. And because of that, because you can't do yibam, you can't do chalitza either. Technically, you could do chalitza. Even this agrees. If he gave her chalitza, it's a good chalitza. If he gave her chalitza and she wasn't pregnant, it was a good chalitza. It's not taking away that. Just you shouldn't do it. If a woman is a suffix, I'm not sure what a suffix means, give her chalitza. My sfekas, what do you mean sfekas? You're not sure if she was married originally to Reuven or not. He threw her a kedushin with a star. You're not sure if it was closer to him. You're not sure if it was kedushin. So why shouldn't she give her chalitza? Why shouldn't she give her yibam? Why can't she give her yibam? Because Reuven was a suffix who was married to Leah. He dies. Shimon should not do yibam, only chalitza. Why? If it's a suffix, amaylo. Let him make yibam either way. If Reuven was married to her, he's performing the mitzvah of yibam. If Reuven wasn't married to her, he's just marrying her stam. He's nothing. Usher to marry this girl. Here's what happened. He was married to one of two sisters. And he died. Now we don't know who he was married to. Let's say he sent kedushin to the father on behalf of the one else, and now he died. We don't know who he was married to. But Tani choletzes, you can't marry either one. Why? Because maybe it's a chos ishto. So he choletzes, right? So what do you see over there? So you see that here's a case where what? Where he can't perform yibum. Why? Because he doesn't know. One of two sisters, he's not sure which sister he's married. The brother was married to. He can't marry either one because maybe it's a chos ishto. And yet you say chalitza, even though you can't do yibum. How can you compare the cases? If Eliyahu would come and tell us the Yomer, the Hakiddish, Bas Chalitza v'Yibmei. If you'd say this is the one, so you could do Yibmei Chalitza, you just don't know which one. Even if Eliyahu would come v'Yomer, even if Eliyahu would tell us that this girl is not pregnant, we would listen to Abina, we wouldn't give her Yibmei, we wouldn't allow Yibmei anyway. Right? Because Hakatana, we have a case where, let's say she's 10 years old. The Lavas is not capable of getting pregnant. In other words, the this that we forbid women to get married within 3 months of marriage is all women, even if they can't be pregnant. The reason ultimately is because we should have Chanazer to know whose kid it is. Or in the case of Yibam, because maybe it'll be Eshach Shalom Makam Mitzvah. But even in the case where it's a kana, we don't allow it. Therefore, we say that either way. You don't do the chalitza. Even in the case of it's a suffix over there, the reason there's still chalitza, even though we say that kol even kol chalitza, kol shein oliv chalitza, but it would be oliv. In that case, we just don't know who the wife is. But if Eliyahu would come and tell us who the wife is, you could perform yibam on her or chalitza. But in this case, the rabbis forbade yibam. Period. Even of a girl who's not pregnant. And therefore, since you don't have any yibam, there's no chalitza either there too. Even though it's all really a drabanan. The yibam was really because really might be eishsaf if she's pregnant. It turned out that's eishsaf shlov malka mitzvah. The chalitza is more like a drabanan that if you actually did chalitza to her and she wasn't pregnant, taka would be a good chalitza. It would be a good chalitza. If he did yibam on her and it turned out she wasn't pregnant, it would be a good yibam too. But in the case of yibam, we don't want to take a chance. All right, we'll do the Tanah Rabbanan tomorrow, and we'll pick it up from here because we got to start davening. Okay. Have a good day. Moadim l'simcha l'kulam.